And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast, to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into today's episode, I want to shout out Campfire Coworks, because that is actually where our studio is located, and we are very happy to partner up with them. They are located here in downtown Marquette, Michigan, and they are an office sharing space. So if there's a way for you to partner up with Campfire Coworks, make sure to go follow them on any social media pages and reach out. Also, we are 11 followers as of today away from hitting 100 subscribers. We would love for you guys to make a push in the subscriber department, so make sure to subscribe and then also like this video so our videos are getting shot out into the YouTube algorithm. We appreciate all the support you guys have shown us over the last 6 months. Continue with it, and we appreciate you. Without further ado, let's get into episode number 29. Yes, we've officially reached 29. This week, we are evaluating the Detroit Pistons bench, each and every player. This week, we will be highlighting Hamidou Diallo, Alec Burks, Cory Joseph, Isaiah Livers, Rodney McGruder, Buddy Boeheim, and Rhoden. And we're going to give, at the end of evaluating each player, we're going to give them their season grade based on our grading scale. Before we get into highlighting some of the specific players, I want to talk about the Detroit Pistons bench as a whole. Last season, compared to other NBA teams' benches, they averaged the fifth most points in the league, averaging nearly 14 points a game from our second unit. Now, in the years past, since 2018, since our last playoff appearance, our bench has never really been the problem as far as winning or losing. Our bench has been one of the deepest in the league, and this year, again, proving that they're top 5 for the most points averaged. So when it comes to a 17-game season, only winning 17 games, is it the bench's fault? Are they not producing enough? Because it seems like they're holding their end of the bargain. Is it the starters? What is it? Because it seems like the bench is really producing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily one group or the other. When you break it down, it's a team game, and so you can't just fault the bench or you can't fault the starting lineup. Mm-hmm. I think as a collective unit, it is the fault of all of them, because like you look at Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, two of the younger players in the league, Jalen Duren being the youngest. Right. And so you have these young guys that need to learn the game, because the NBA is the fastest out there. Yeah. Much faster than college, even faster than high school. Like every tier of basketball, so you start out with like AAU and like elementary basketball. Right. Yeah, it may seem fast at first, but then you get used to it. Then you adjust to high school and you adjust to college, and the difference between college and the NBA is drastically different.
So drastic.
Because the NBA, you're having every single guy in that rotation that is on every team. They're a freak of an athlete. Dude. Whereas in college, you're going to have some guys that are slower, this is no disrespect, but like a Luka Garza or like a Zach Edey at Purdue. Like, you're going to have these guys that are slower, but they have all the fundamentals and the tools to be good. They're not as fast, and they're not as like freak of athlete type players. Yep. But then in the NBA, it's completely different, because you have these guys, like the last man on the bench is essentially like look at the Bulls as an example. They have what's his face Derrick Jones.
Yep.
Freak of an athlete. He can jump out of the gym, one of the best dunkers in the NBA by far. Yep. But he doesn't have the skill level to be on the court as a starter with a DeMar DeRozan or others like a Zach LaVine. Right. But he's still a freak of an athlete, so this game is much faster and much harder than it is at any other level. So it's just more of like these guys. This team is very young, one of the youngest in the league. For sure. They really need to have the game slow down for them to really start winning more, because this team has really no vets on it. It really has just Bojan, Cade. I don't even consider Cade a vet yet. No. I don't consider Killian a vet yet. Isaiah Stewart's not a vet yet. That group is they're not vets yet.
Just Alec and...
Yeah, it's really just Alec Burks, Cory Joseph, and Boeheim. That's pretty much it for our vets. So when you look at our roster, and you can understand how we would have just had 17 wins this year. And then you also throw in like, oh yeah, but what about Oklahoma City Thunder? Because they're kind of in the same boat as us. No, the difference is they're a step ahead of us because they have guys that have had the game slowed down for them. Like, look at Josh Giddey as an example. Yeah, he may be one of the youngest players in the league, and he still is in his second year this past year, but he has the experience because he still played pro basketball overseas. Right. So he knows how to handle himself. Whereas a Jalen Duren and a Jaden Ivey coming in, and even the rest of our young team, they don't know how to handle themselves essentially because a majority of them have barely played in the NBA thus far. So I wouldn't just blame the bench, and I wouldn't just blame the starting rotation. I would blame the whole team.
And to your point of, the vets, the NBA game slowing down for them and our rookies and young guys, young core, the game's still so fast to them in the NBA. To your point, the Pistons bench has two vets, Cory Joseph and Alec Burks. So maybe why we're seeing our bench kind of succeed at a high level compared to other NBA teams is because they're being led by guys like Cory Joseph and Alec Burks. And, the growing pains of the starting lineup is really what we're still going through. But the payoff will be much more greater, hopefully, this upcoming season than the season after that. Again, our bench is very good at scoring nearly half of our points every game. Yeah. But then we also saw them shoot a very high percentage. Overall, the 82 game schedule we saw them shoot 45.6% from the field together. That is just, I personally love that. If we were hovering around 32, I'd be like, all right, we got to figure out something. But something's working if your bench over an 82 game schedule is shooting 45%, nearly 56. If you're shooting 50% from the field as a collective, you have to start somewhere. And the bench really sets the tone. If the starting lineup starts the game off a little cold, our bench has to come in, set the tone, and really try to pick up the starters. And we saw that happen from time to time this last season.
Yeah, and I will say, when you look at our bench and the collective unit we have built from Weaver there, a lot of these guys, they know how good they are. Yeah. They know what shots work for them, and they take those shots. They don't take bad shots, really. Like Hami, it's either for him a fast break where he's dunking it, getting a layup in the paint, or it's more of like he's just hitting a mid-range jumper. That's it. He's never taking a three because he knows he can't shoot that. Right. And then you have Cory Joseph. Cory Joseph, no matter what it is, it may seem like a bad shot at the time, but he knows what he's doing. He takes smart shots when he needs to. Yep. And then even Isaiah Livers, yeah, he is supposed to be one of the better shooters on this team. He does struggle sometimes, but he still knows that he is by far one of the better shooters on our team, and he looks for the three. He doesn't look for anything else. And Rodney McGruder even, when he played, and I made the comment earlier, he's been dominating this season. And so, when he did play, he knew the minutes he was getting wasn't this is the most I'm going to get this season, so I'm going to make sure I'm giving it all. And he's taking smart shots every single time. He's cutting to the basket. He's getting open looks. It's just, when you look at our bench, these guys know how to play the game the right way. Yep. And therefore, we're not making a ton of mistakes and we're scoring a lot of points.
To kind of flip the coin and talk about the defensive side of the ball now, the Pistons averaged 3.1 steals, their bench rather, averaged 3.1 steals per game, which is the third best in the NBA, only behind the Houston Rockets, which stings a little bit, averaging 3.2, just a little bit better. And then the New Orleans Pelicans averaged 3.5. And I think we can really thank Hamidou Diallo for that. A lot of times this last season, evaluating his defensive game, he really helped us very well, whether it was the passing lane or whether it was just Swiper the Fox and just stealing people's, just swiping it from them. But our bench showing that, yes, they can get you buckets, but then also they're going to play solid defense and be one of the more solid statistic benches on the defensive side in the NBA.
Yeah, and to that point, like, Hami averaged pretty much a steal a game, and so did Alec Burks.
Yep.
And then somebody that is an unsung hero on defense for us is actually Isaiah Livers.
Okay.
Because, like, there are games where he doesn't fill up the box score, but his presence is there on defense because he just works his tail off every single time.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what. He's diving all over the place, and that's great to see because there's a lot of players that just don't dive. And they don't do that because it's like, yeah, what if I don't even get the ball, or I'm going to scrape my leg up, that's going to hurt the next day. It's kind of like that kind of thing. So when you have Livers and guys like that, like Rodney McGruder, who are just scrappy and just put their foot down and just ram into you essentially on defense, we're going to have one of the better defenses in the league. And yeah, it hurts that Houston is one-upping us in that category, but they still suck. So
they're right there with us. They're not too far behind. This won't be too shocking to whoever followed the Detroit Pistons somewhat closely or somewhat regularly. The Pistons actually averaged the second most fouls in the league with their bench, averaging 9.2, only second to the San Antonio Spurs, who averaged 9.7 fouls per game off the bench. That's not too surprising. We saw guys like Killian and Isaiah. Killian was off the bench here and there, and Isaiah Livers and even Hamidou would struggle with fouls here and there. Even though he did improve with that this season with the fouling. But I think if they could just tone back the fouling a little bit, maybe get us to like 6-5 fouls off the bench, that would be great. That might be asking for a little much, but I think that when these guys get some little age under their belt, another season under their belt, which they did, guys like Hamidou, Isaiah, Killian, I think they're going to tone it back a little bit more. So that's not really an issue where I'm like, oh no, that needs to be addressed. I'm sure it's already addressed.
Yeah, and I will say, I do think it's also about the mindset of where you think your team is.
Yeah.
So when you're in the mindset of like, hey, we actually have a shot at winning something this year, everybody's going to try their all not to foul.
Right.
Whereas if like this season as an example, you're tanking, your season's pretty much done already within like 20 games into the season, essentially, your season's done. So it's like, it is what it is. I'll just foul.
Right.
But that's really all it is mindset. If you have a coach coming in who sets the tone and is like, hey, we may not win this year, but I want us to really give it our all.
Yeah.
These guys are not going to foul as much. You're going to see Jaden Ivey just play solid defense the entire time because I believe he can be one of the better defenders on our team. But you see all these guys that are younger that maybe foul too much, but I think the new coach coming in is really going to set the tone. Yeah. I think Weaver he's even going to set the tone. I think he's going to make a comment to Cade and be like, hey, lead our team and make sure we're not fouling as much because that's really hurting our team going forward.
Yeah.
So I really think no matter what the mindset is this offseason, I think the tone needs to be set. And if it does or it doesn't, we're going to see that as a result. But I think if the tone is set, we don't foul or turn the ball over as much.
We saw so much last season that fouling just kind of bogs down our team so much. So it's definitely a problem that I'm sure Casey addressed before he exited. Yeah. And then hopefully, like you're saying, this next coach, this next regime per se, kind of makes sure that that's a top priority because it really was an issue for the Detroit Pistons this last season. And that's something that while evaluating last season in each and every player, it was an issue for a lot of guys that we have covered so far. Without further ado, let's start talking about individual play of each player coming off the bench. We're going to start off with Cory Joseph, and just so that everybody knows, wait till the end because we're going to be ending with Alec Burks and Hamidou Diallo, so make sure to stick around because you're going to want to hear our takes on Alec Burks and Hamidou Diallo. Let's start off with Cory Joseph. Like you're saying, he gave a very veteran presence off the bench. I'm hoping he mentored guys like Killian, Jaden, some of those guard-heavy players. Because he's a guy with a championship background, came from a Greg Popovich team. So I really hope that he kind of mentored those guys. He got buckets, obviously. He knows how to get shots up. He knows how to get his threes, get points in the paint, using his body. Played smart. And when we needed him to play smart, he really offered that this season.
Yeah. There's so much you can say about him, honestly, because he took a cut in minutes this year. He only played 19 minutes a game, which is much lower than what he had been previously. Like last year, he was playing like 26 minutes a game, and the year before that, he was at like 28. So he's taken a cut every year. So the fact that you had a cut this year in minutes, and then he only played 62 games, so he didn't play 20 games this year, which we saw due to injury, but he still cut back on games played, he still cut back on minutes, but yet he was still productive in that time.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's something you can applaud him for, because he didn't complain. He could have been one of the guys that were like, hey, you know what, this isn't working for me, just trade me, please.
Right.
But he's one of those guys that he just loves the community, and he loves mentoring these young guys, and you can really see that. Because like even when we're at Pistons games and whatnot, you see him talking to pretty much everybody, starting a conversation, be one of those people persons, and it's just an amazing thing to see, because he's just a very uplifting guy and individual. And so when you see that, and then you translate it to the court where he's making these smart plays time and time again, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I love Cory Joseph, because last year, I know for a fact I was going like, please just cut back his minutes even more. I want to see Killian play. I want to see all these guys actually develop into something. And then this year, it finally happened where he did get that cut back. And you did see Killian go off from time to time. And you saw these other guards on our team that really got that playing time. And it was just an amazing atmosphere to see. And it's all because of a leader in Cory Joseph. And that's really what it went down to.
Yeah, he really seemed to flourish in the role he took on this season, because the season prior, like you were saying, there was times where we would get upset. We're like, why is he taking so many minutes away from guys like Killian? And now this season, finally Killian gets the upper hand and starting to get the minutes. And, you know, Cory Joseph seemed like he was just trying to stay engaged. There'd be sometimes I'd be watching the game, seeing him on the bench, and he's just kind of zoned out, you know. But it's like, I don't blame him, you know. He didn't get a whole lot of minutes here and there. I honestly kind of thought averaging 19 minutes was kind of generous, because I think there was some times where he didn't see the floor often. But without further ado, let's go through our grading system so we can give Cory Joseph his season grade.
So our grading system: A, amazing season, better than expected. B, great season, better than advertised. C, as advertised with room for improvement. D, below advertised with a lot of room for improvement. And F, our favorite, who is this guy?
Yeah. So I'll start us off with Cory Joseph. I'm going to give him a C, because he was as advertised. He's what I wanted. I think there's obviously a little more room for improvement for him. I mean, he's a vet, so I don't know if we'll see improvement. But there was times where I just, like I was saying, I didn't think he was super present. I thought he was kind of checked out sometimes. I get it. It was a 17-win season, but also as a vet, you're getting paid for a reason. You know, you got to be mentoring, coaching up these guys. And I did see that at times in timeouts, you know, him pulling aside Killian and even Cade early on in the season and last season. So that's all you can really ask from a guy from Cory Joseph. So I'll give him a C. What are you looking at here, Ryan?
You're going to be shocked.
Okay.
I'm giving him an A.
What? Better than advertised?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
And that's just because of him noticing that he needed to take a step back and accept his new role within the team and just be a leader. And he did that. And then even when there were stretches at times in games where we needed a guy to score essentially for us because we were down bad, he came in, and what did he do? He scored every single time we needed him to. He did that. And so just the fact that he's leading by example for one, and then he's mentoring these young guys, because you can really see the development in Killian, and you can see Cory Joseph being a reason for that. Because like, I'm not trying to hype up Cory Joseph too much, but he actually does have a nasty step back. And then you look at Killian. Killian really added that to his game this year. He did, because he really took more step back threes. And who would he learn that from otherwise? Because I know Cade can take that shot, but it's really, when you think about it, it has to be Cory Joseph. Because Cory Joseph is kind of like one of those guys that he's going to take a step back three majority of the time. If it's a late stretch of the game, because he's a smaller guard. He can't quite shoot over a 6'6" wing. He can't do that if he's straight up. But so I really applaud Cory Joseph for taking on his new role this year and really just the fact that he got minutes cut back and he was still accepting of it, and just one of those guys that when we needed him to step up, he did.
So, a C and an A for Cory Joseph. Now let's talk about Buddy Boeheim. We're going to talk about him, and he got some minutes here and there. He played 10 games for us, and I think averaged like 9 minutes when he did play. He was a guy that he was streaky from the 3-point line, but he's a guy that, we didn't really get a whole lot to look at. Yeah. What are some of your thoughts on Buddy?
So for Buddy, coming from the Boeheim family, Jim Boeheim is one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time. The second coach in NCAA history to have over 1,000 wins in their career, behind Coach K, of course. And so when you come from a family like that, it's a basketball family for one. This kid knows how to play.
Yeah.
The difference is he was a second-round pick for a reason, and he also he is a good player, but he's not ready for the NBA. And you really saw that at times, because early on in the season, it's like you see him out there and like, who I know who he is, but it was more of like an F, because like, who is this guy?
Yeah,
he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He just seems timid. He's not making smart plays. He's not shooting the ball great. He's one of the better shooters on this team by far, and yet he's shooting 16% from 3 and 18% from the field. That is awful. Yeah. I am sorry, but it is. It really is. And yeah, he really didn't take too many shots. He only had 16 points total in the year. But like Dwayne Casey gave you a flyer. I would take that opportunity when you can. Because look at guys like Duncan Robinson, go blue, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Miami, undrafted. Nobody expected him to be as good as he has. But time and time again, when given the opportunity, he steps up. He's dropping like 15 to 29 points a game. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. But that's because he's a shooter. And that's what you got brought in to do. You got brought in to shoot, and you didn't do that. So I think his floor and his ceiling really is the G League.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to cut it in the NBA. Now, I would love to be wrong with that. I really would.
Well, me too.
But unless he fixes his shot, which I know he has a shot. He's one of the better shooters, but unless he fixes how he plays in the game when he gets the opportunity to, I don't see him lasting.
Yeah, Buddy Boeheim, he, like you said, 16% from the 3-point line, 18% from the field. That's just, for a guy that's supposedly a sharpshooter, a good scorer, in the NBA, it's either not translating or he was so nervous. I'm not sure what it was, but in the end, you got to produce if you want time. And he was given 10 games. Yes, in an 82-game schedule, 10 games isn't much. But I think we can expect a lot more G League time from him this upcoming season. And then, if he's starting to ball out, kind of like how Luka Garza was and Saban Lee, maybe he'll get some more time. But unfortunately, I think maybe this season was the most we'll see of him in the NBA. Let's give him his season grade. I'll start us off. I'm not going to give him an F. But like you said, he was a second-round pick. We used a pick on him, and for him to pretty much, in my opinion, give us a goose egg, it's kind of disappointing. We've seen guys in the past, second-rounders, make a big-time effort. Yeah. I loved your example of Duncan Robinson going undrafted and being a key player on that Miami Heat team. So with that being said, I'm going to give him a D just because I expected more out of him, really, in the end. I expected him to be not a great defender because he's not the most athletic. I expected him to be able to knock down threes, and he didn't give us that. I think for him this season, okay, his shots aren't falling. Make an impact in another category. Yeah. You're a bigger body, get us some rebounds. He didn't really do that either. So that's my issue, is that if you can't do what typically is your bread and butter, start somewhere else then. Yeah. Try to get a different statistic and get the ball rolling there. And he just didn't do that. So I'm going to give him a D. What do you got, Ryan?
So I hate to be negative because I'm sure you're a high-class guy, and I'm sure I really think you are a great guy. And I don't like being negative. Hudson knows me. He knows that I'm not a negative person.
Yep.
So it's very hard for me to be negative. But with that being said, I'm not going to give you an F because that's just too mean. Yeah. But I'm going to give you a D-. And really it's because you had an opportunity that a lot of guys pray for. Like, a lot of guys aren't given these opportunities that are honestly better athletes than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you got that opportunity and you essentially blew it.
Yeah.
You really did. You squandered an opportunity to have success in the league. And I love Jim Boeheim. He's on my Mount Rushmore of college basketball coaches by far.
Right.
And so when you come and that's your dad and you're one of the better shooters in this class, when we picked you up, I was like, oh, okay, Weaver, that's a sneaky good pick. But then it's now like, wow, that was wasted.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it was really wasted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would not be shocked at all if you are not on the Pistons next year. And so by that standard, I really wish you the best, because I think you're a high-class guy. I know you can shoot and I know you can play, but you blew an opportunity.
Yeah, we'll see next season what Buddy brings to the table, but right now we're going to give him, for this last season, a D and a D-. Let's talk about Jared Rhoden, another one of those tweener guys on those two-way contracts with the Detroit Pistons and the Drive. He was a guy that, honestly, like, watching him play, his body language, his play style reminded me a lot of a James Harden.
Yeah.
I always used to say that whenever he'd get some minutes in the recaps. He struggled offensively, though, when he did get the minutes. With guys like Duncan Robinson, we saw him when he got the little minutes he got, and when he first got to the league, he took advantage of it right away. He ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Rhoden, we didn't really see that happen. I think with his offensive ability, and if he can find a comfortable spot on the court with the right personnel, I can see him succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
But this season, we just didn't really see that. What are some of your thoughts on Jared Rhoden?
So he played 4 more games than Buddy, which is not much. But he still averaged 14 minutes a game, which is kind of crazy to think about. He was only 5 minutes off of Cory Joseph.
Right.
But you still only averaged 3 points a game. And you only had 45 points on the season. Like, there were times where we saw flashes in certain parts of games and late stretches where we're like, oh, okay, Jared Rhoden.
Yeah, we're like, where's this going?
Yeah. We were kind of like, this is intriguing. I'm kind of paying attention now. But then there are also moments in games where you just sucked. I'm sorry, you just sucked.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, where do I want to stand with him? Because you see flashes at times where you're like, okay, he's special. But then you see the next game, and it's like, oh my goodness, where did that come from?
Yeah,
it's kind of like Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a high caliber player. In my opinion, he's overhyped. He shouldn't have been on the all-time top 75 team. He shouldn't have been on that list. I'm sorry. He shouldn't have been on that list. But you have him. He's squandered multiple opportunities in the playoffs for the Lakers there, because he goes off for 30 and 10, and then the next game he disappears, and then he goes off, and then he disappears. And it's like, if you're going to be a high-caliber guy, you need to be consistent. Mm-hmm. And you got to be that. Consistency is key in the league. And Jared Rhoden, you had opportunities to be consistent. You outplayed Buddy Boeheim in minutes. You had more opportunities. You averaged 14 minutes a game, which is absurd for you, no offense. Mm-hmm. But he still squandered those opportunities. And so I hate being negative, but he really didn't take the flyer when he had the chance.
Yeah, and we've seen that happen with other Seton Hall players. You know, Seton Hall's kind of made a name for themselves in the last 15 years, and we've seen it happen before where they have some of these higher prospects, you know, getting their name out there, getting well known. Jared Rhoden was one of those guys, and it just doesn't pan out. We've seen that happen with like 3 or 4 guys now in the last like 7 years. So it's kind of surprising, because you want those like smaller schools like Seton Hall to be able to get some bigger names, and then but when they just don't translate, it's kind of like hurting their credibility as far as having these NBA ready players. And Jared Rhoden, I think, is somebody that we'll see bounce around, kind of like a Frank Jackson. Yeah. I think he'll hover around in the NBA for a while. Just don't know if it's going to be with the Pistons. Yeah. I'd like to see a couple more opportunities for him in a Pistons jersey, because I think there might be something there. I just think if we have guys like Alec Burks, Hamidou Diallo, and Isaiah Livers on our roster, just don't know if it'll be with us because they're all similar in size to Jared, and Jared wasn't really able to set him apart in his little time that he did have on the court with the Pistons. Let's get into it. Let's give him his season grade this last season. Jared Rhoden, what are you giving him?
I'm giving him, I want to say an F, but that's me. So a D-. I'll give him a D-.
Oh, wow, you're tougher than me this time.
Just because, like, you had more of an opportunity than Buddy and you still failed.
Yeah. 4 more games, Yeah, he went undrafted, correct?
Yeah.
So with him going undrafted, that makes me a little bit more lenient with him just because we didn't waste anything on him.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy Boeheim, I'm a little more upset about just because I feel like we wasted a pick on him. I'm going to give Jared a C just because maybe I should go C- because I saw flashes of what he was advertised as, a scorer with okay defense. His defense was pretty terrible from what we saw, but like you said, the NBA is so fast, it's hard to get used to. I think I'm going to give him a C- because he's a little bit less than what I expected, but he's also undrafted, so it's like can't have huge expectations for undrafted guys just because some work out, some don't. It's so hit or miss. Like you just don't know. It's a gamble. So I'm going to give him a C-. Jared Rhoden, I hope you work out in the NBA. I just don't know if it's going to be with the Pistons unless you go off in summer league or something.
Yeah. I will point out, just real quick, he had more fouls than games played.
Mm-hmm.
He had 23 fouls.
That'll do it.
He had more fouls than Buddy Boeheim had points.
Yeah. Yeah, they're quite the duo.
That's not good.
They're quite the duo. Let's talk about Isaiah Livers. Obviously, go Big Blue. This is a guy that I'm a little extra tough on just because he is a Michigan product from Kalamazoo, went to Michigan, now playing for the Detroit Pistons. He's Michigan all the way. I love his play style, 3-and-D. He's pretty athletic too. We saw him catch a couple lob dunks last season. I love that. What are some of your thoughts on Isaiah Livers? He was a guy that we really went back and forth on all season.
Yeah, so this season was really his rookie year. Because last season he only played 19 games, so this year he played 52, which honestly, that's still not even good. I love Isaiah Livers. I loved him at Michigan because go Blue, of course. And so when you have just the fact that he's a Michigan man and you really want to support that, and then he's subpar. I'm sorry, you really are subpar. But that's also because you've gotten so many injuries this year. And it's like, you need to stay healthy.
Yeah,
because if you stay healthy, oh my goodness, you're a difference maker. But when you're injured all the time, it's kind of hard to see that. And that gives Weaver an opportunity to be like, yeah, well, let's throw him out there and see what we can get for you. Because that is going to happen sooner rather than later if you don't stay healthy. Let's be realistic here. But in the 52 games he did play, I'm going to take the 7 points. It's okay. It's nothing spectacular. But you're also supposed to be a good shooter, and you shot 36% from 3.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And so, just like I've been hard on Jared Rhoden and Buddy Boeheim, those two guys, Buddy is a far better shooter than Jared Rhoden is, but still, like, you should have, the fact that Buddy, yes, he only had 16% from 3, and you're at 36%, so you did shoot better, but it's like, you didn't shoot better by much.
Right.
Because you took 74 threes this season, and you only made 36% of it. Like,
right.
That's not good. That really isn't good. But I will say, I made the reference to him earlier. He is one of those guys that he may not fill up the box score every night, but he's going to work his tail off on defense and be one of those anchors out there. And so when he did that, I'm like, yes, I love you, Isaiah Livers.
Right.
But then when he had those games where it's like, you should be hitting these shots and you're not.
I know.
It's kind of like, oh man, dude, you need to hit these shots.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have a good read on him because I want to be the guy that's the hype man for him because I really think he can still be something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to stay healthy. And if you don't stay healthy, you're not going to be in the league.
Yeah, and Isaiah Livers had plenty of opportunities this last season. He really got a nice chemistry going with Killian Hayes. Killian Hayes would set him up real nice. He'd have a wide open three and just couldn't knock him down. There would be possessions where he would get the 3 shots in a row on each possession and just brick them both. I never really thought he would be a streaky shooter like that. I thought he would always be able to rely on that 3-ball, but that just did not happen this last season. He's going to get another opportunity this upcoming season. I really hope he takes advantage. Now, when a team is coming off a losing season the way the Detroit Pistons are, I always worry about the bench and what players are possibly on the hot seat, because the bench are the kind of thing where you mess with those guys a little bit more. You include them in trades, you maybe cut them, you just don't know what it might look like with bench players. Is Isaiah Livers the kind of guy that might be on the hot seat this offseason, knowing Troy Weaver is so willing to pull the trigger?
Yes, I do think so. And it's hard for me to say because I love him. And I love Michigan because, we're better than little brother, of course. But no, Isaiah Livers has such a high ceiling still. If he were to just stay healthy and really click for once, we could be seeing a great role player for years to come. But if he doesn't stay healthy, I'm scared to see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's either we're going to trade him or we're going to cut him. And it's going to be one of those two things. And I want him to work out because he's a Michigan man. And I also want him to work out because I believe in him. But when you don't produce at the level that you should, and then you're constantly injured, you can understand why Marvin Bagley, as an example, got moved from Sacramento. It's because they're like, yeah, we're kind of giving up on you. I'm sorry. You can't stay healthy and whatnot. And same with Jabari Parker. I see Isaiah Livers kind of in that mold. Now, these two guys coming out of college were much better than Isaiah Livers was. But it's still a fair comparison in the sense that Isaiah Livers, you should have been something.
Yeah.
And you're just not hitting that yet. And so it's kind of worrisome. And if it really comes down to health. We made that comment about him earlier on in the season, in the late stretches there of we could see it Livers being moved if he doesn't stay healthy.
Yep.
And he really needs to take these opportunities. But we just didn't see that out of him this year.
Yeah, we would have bet money on Livers getting traded rather than Sadiq. We didn't really predict that. I remember, I won't get into the Sadiq stories. We're talking about Isaiah Livers. Let's give Isaiah Livers his final grade for the season after shooting 36% from the 3-point line, struggling with fouls, only averaging 7 points over 42 games I believe he played. What is your final grade for Isaiah Livers? I am so excited to know what this is because we're big Blue fans, but we've always been tough on Isaiah. Let's get into it.
I can't be too negative on him.
Yeah.
Because I do love him. But that makes me a little biased, of course. But I'm going to give you a C. And just because I can't give you a D and I can't give you an F because you still have a little bit of a higher ceiling than most of these guys that we've graded so far. And I still see a potential in you if you were to just stay healthy and be more consistent with your shot. And I do believe you could be a great role player on this team going forward. But you need to stay healthy and you need to work on your shot.
I'm going to be tougher on you, Isaiah. I'm sorry. I'm going to try not to be unbiased. I loved you at Michigan, but I'm going to be so tough on you right here. I'm not sure what pick, do you recall what pick we took him at? Was it second round?
It was second round, and I believe it was pick 65, but I could be very wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think there's only 60 picks in the draft, but I'm not exactly sure.
I don't remember.
I just know that he was second round now. That confirmed it. Knowing that we took him with the pick, I'm glad we took him there. I am, because he's a Michigan guy. I think we should do the same thing with Imoni Bates in the second round being a Michigan guy. I think he has not met our expectations. He hasn't met what he was advertised as. He hasn't been able to give us that 3-point shot the way he was supposed to and predicted to in the scouting reports, I'm going to give him a D. I think that if he stayed more healthy, he played 75 games, 72 games, I think I would give him that C- C mark. But since he wasn't able to stay healthy, just barely played half the season, I have to give him a D, because if you're not going to play great, stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because if you stay healthy, you're going to get opportunities to play great. But if you deal with injuries and then the opportunities you do get, you're not taking advantage of, that's when you're looking at the G League or you're looking at those two-way contracts. And I think taking somebody in the second round, you don't want them to be moved to a two-way contract, because that means that they are not meeting the level that you need them at. And I think Isaiah, if he doesn't make the right moves this upcoming season, he might be looking at that kind of an opportunity. So I'm going to go with a D, and Ryan, you gave him a C. So we're not too far off the mark. Let's talk about Alec Burks. This is a guy, we're big Alec Burks guys. Yeah. You were higher on him before we got to see him in a Detroit Pistons jersey. I was a little bit more weary, like I don't really know what to expect. But I love what he added to the Detroit Pistons. Solid defense, like you said, averaging nearly a steal a game. The three-point shots there, he can give it to you off the dribble, off the catch and shoot. I love that. He's very versatile. And he also doesn't force the ball up. He's fine with passing around. He lets the game come to him. And as an NBA vet and as a fan, I love seeing that, because we talk about Boeheim a lot, how Boeheim likes to force his shot. Alec Burks is not that. He is a fan favorite because he lets the game come to him, and he lets guys like Killian, Jaden get him the ball and let those guys just kind of do their own thing. And I love that. Talk about Alec Burks a little bit. I know you're an Alec Burks guy.
Yeah, so last year when he was with the Knicks there were moments in these games that I'm not intentionally trying to watch the New York Knicks because they suck. But there are times where I'm just flipping through, and then I see that game. I'm like, oh, okay, let's see it.
Yeah.
And then you see Alec Burks out there. And I've always sat there, and it was last year, and I was like, man, I wish he was a Piston. I really wish that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Weaver pulled that trigger during the draft there, and we got Alec Burks, and I'm like, oh my goodness, did we just get a steal? Because Alec Burks, my goodness, dude.
Yeah.
You're by far one of the better role players in the NBA today. You're very efficient. You take smart shots. Not only do you take smart shots, but you make them.
Yeah.
He shot 43% from the field, 41% from three, and 81% from the free throw line. You can't ask much more out of a player like that.
Right.
And he still averaged over 13 points a game. He played great. He balled out.
Yep.
And yeah, he only played 51 games, so due to injury, he didn't get all the 82, but still 51 games, and he did that.
Yep.
Whereas you look at Isaiah Livers, who played 52 games, played one more game than you, and sucked. Isaiah Livers is supposed to be the shooter between the two of you, and that's not a knock, because I love Alec Burks.
Mm-hmm.
But Isaiah Livers is supposed to be a shooter.
Right.
And the fact that you shot better than him, I just applaud you for that, for
Absolutely.
one. But also, there was not one moment where he was out there, I'm like, I don't question him at all. He can take whatever shot he wants.
Yeah.
And he can do whatever he wants with the ball because I trust him. And there was not one moment in any of these games this year where I'm like, oh, please take out Alec Burks, please. No. Every single time, I'm like, oh, keep him out there.
Yeah.
Keep him out there for the rest of the game if you want, Casey. I don't care. I love him being out there because he's such a positive impact. And so, going forward, we signed Bojan to that 3-year extension. We need to hold on to Alec Burks for as long as we can.
Yeah.
Because I really see him being around when we're successful. And I see him outlasting Bojan by a landslide.
Yeah.
It's not even close because, one, Alec Burks is still relatively young, and he can ball out when he wants to. If he were to actually want to ball out, he could be dropping 50 points a game like he did with the Knicks last year. It's not hard for him.
No.
It's effortless. And so it's Alec Burks, I really applaud you for your amazing season this year.
There was plenty of games, we do our recaps after every game. in a lot of our recaps, we were always like, oh, and there's Alec Burks again, a positive impact, gave us 12 points and 2 assists and 3 rebounds. Perfect, coming off the bench. There was so many times where Alec Burks would bail us out in late game situations. He has that clutch gene. He would force games within 4 points with 2 minutes left, like he's knocking down those deep threes. What I also liked from Alec Burks late in his career, an NBA vet at this point, shows that he's not even still relying on his 3-point shot. He can give you buckets in the paint and off the dribble and on the mid-range game. That's another thing that I loved, is that his offensive game this season was very versatile. He didn't just give you 3-point shots, but he showed that he's a well-rounded offensive player. And coming off the bench, when you have a guy like that, it's so crucial for those end of the game pushes in those fourth quarters, because that's when the knit and grit starts. The tired, you gotta get those electrolytes in, and Alec Burks is there to give that offense a push when they need it.
Yeah, and there's just so much you can't not say about him, because he's just one of those guys where it's like, you look at what he did for averages and you look at what he did totals, and it's like, I love it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with what he did this year.
Yeah.
You can't knack him on anything. He only had 98 fouls, and he played 51 games. That's pretty darn good. Meaning he's not fouling, and he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. Only had 58 turnovers. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He had 38 steals, which is a high number. He hit shots. He got minutes. He got buckets. Had 652 points on the year in only 51 games. Whereas you look at Livers, who played one more game, had 346 points. So obviously, based off that, you're like, yeah, I love Alec Burks.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, Alec Burks has played with several teams over his career. Utah Jazz, New York Knicks, might be one other team in there. This might be a hot take, but I want Alec Burks to retire as a Detroit Piston. Troy Weaver, whatever you have to do to sign this guy, do it. Now, do I want him to be the biggest guy, the biggest contract on our team? No, by no means. Give him a vet contract, but make sure he has his last 5, 6, whatever it is, seasons with the Detroit Pistons. He retires a Detroit Piston, and I want his jersey in the wrap. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want his jersey in the wrap. No, that's too bold. Actually, if we went to back-to-back chips before he retires, then do it. But that's the only way you're giving him a jersey in the rafters. But my point is Alec Burks there's a lot of negatives this season. If you've watched every evaluation, we've pointed out the flaws in each and every player. And Alec Burks, throughout this season, showed that if you can find some light in a 17-win season, Alec Burks was always there, just making the right play, doing the right thing. And every team needs a player like that. It's so crucial. You need to have an efficient player like that to win games. And I think Alec Burks is going to be that guy for the next, hopefully, 4 to 5 seasons when the Detroit Pistons are finally starting to hit their stride. Talked about it. We got into the statistics. Let's give him his season grade. Start us off there, Ryan.
All right. So,
I'm excited to hear this.
Alec Burks, you get an A.
An A? Okay.
Yeah, and that's because, dude, you balled out. You actually had no flaws with your game this year. There was not one thing where I'm looking at it and going like, oh, he did not. There was just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably knack him just for the amount of games he played.
Yep.
That's the only one, really.
Yep, that's what I thought.
But still, in 51 games, he was spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
He outplayed a lot of our guys on this team. And honestly, it may not be a bold take because, it's kind of bold, but it's not bold. A lot of Pistons fans do not like Killian, and a lot of Pistons fans do. And I love Killian. But Alec Burks outplayed Killian Hayes this year.
Ooh, interesting. That is kind of a bold take. I mean, it's interesting, though. I mean, they offer two different things, but I think Alec Burks was definitely very crucial to the Pistons. I think we might not even have reached 17 wins if it wasn't for him. He got us buckets and saved our butts a lot this year. I'm not going to give him an A. I'm going to give Alec Burks a B. I'm absolutely ecstatic about his play. He's better than what I expected. I did not think he was going to make an impact the way he did. A lot of people did, a lot of people didn't, but I was kind of a little bit more skeptical. I was like, is he really going to be much of a difference maker? But yeah, I'm for sure happy with Alec Burks' play. He gives a great presence off the bench. I think he's a very solid vet to have around our young guys, and very happy with his play. So a B and an A?
Yep.
A, yeah, so B and A for Alec Burks in his last NBA season with the Detroit Pistons. Let's get into, he's not my favorite player on the Detroit Pistons, but he's my top 4 for sure.
Right.
Let's get into Hamidou Diallo. He was a big spark plug off the bench for the Detroit Pistons this season, averaging nearly a steal off the bench, and his offensive game really took a couple steps up this season. The statistics don't really back that up. He actually averaged less points than he did last year, but this season he showed that he worked way better within our offense than he did before. A lot of times last season, 2 seasons ago rather, when his first season with the Pistons, he would kind of mess with the rhythm of our offense because he wasn't the best at working within the offense. This season, he proved that he really either matured, a flip switched where he matured, or he just got a little bit more refined in his offensive skill, where he could work through the offense this year. And when he would get a steal, that's when he would get a little crazy with his offense, those big time dunks, those weird layups, those and ones. He's a very eccentric guy. And he really showed this season his personality on the court, and then also just winning basketball. I really felt like he turned his game into a winning style play.
Yeah, he became a crucial role player for this team. And like last year, and even his first year with the Pistons, I was sitting there going like, dude, you have all the abilities really to be something special. But it just, last year I'm like, it's not translating.
Right.
But then this year it's like a whole new him. And I'm like, okay, homie.
Yep.
And so it's like you see these things in just his play this year and his ability to just lead a defense. And he was just one of those guys where you put him in, he's working his tail off, and the outcome of the game changes. Because there's moments when, before he steps in, we suck. We have not hit a single shot in like the last 5 minutes. Hami comes in, boom, instant bucket.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can applaud him for that. And just the prior 2 years, you never really saw that. But then this year, it's like every single time he had that opportunity, he was scoring. It was a fast break every single time. He was just leading it. He's just one of those guys that's a true leader, and you can really applaud that. Now, I hope we really do bring you back this offseason.
Yes.
Because you're fun to watch, dude. You really are. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if Weaver saw it as like, we don't really have the money to pay him what he wants. And so that's why I could see Hami not coming back. But dude, I want you back.
Yeah.
Because you're a baller. You balled out this season. Yeah, you played 56 games, only had 522 points. But, that is low. But you only hit 5 threes, which is actually pretty good for you. I will throw that out there. But you still only shot 23% from 3, which is awful.
Yeah.
But his field goal percentage, he shot 57% from the
I
field.
know.
Like, dude, you can shoot.
Yeah.
Just update your game a little bit and add a 3-point shot. And, dude, you're one of the, if he has a 3-point shot to his game, he's one of the best 6th man in the league.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah. I want to talk about his 3-point shot in just a quick second. I also want to note Ryan talking about maybe him not re-signing with the Detroit Pistons this offseason. It's definitely a big possibility because there's reports that he sold his home in Auburn Hills, I believe, or somewhere in the surrounding suburbs of Detroit. He sold his house, which is not good. That's not a good sign. Hopefully that just means he's moving to somewhere else in Detroit, area. But that's not a great sign in the favor of him re-signing, but you just never know. Like you were saying, Hamidou Diallo can really shy away from the 3-point line and really struggle even when he does get opportunities. For him to succeed on an NBA team or with the Detroit Pistons does he have to develop a three-point shot, or can he get away with just shooting 57% from the field around the hoop?
I think he can get away with not having a three-point shot, but that's if his production stays consistent like it was this year, and being one of those key defensive anchors and key role players on this team. That's the only way that I can see that not having to take place. But otherwise, in my opinion of him, if he would have just developed a three-point shot, you can't stop him.
Right.
I'm sorry. He's a freak of an athlete. He's going to blow right past you every single time.
Yeah.
If he just were to add just the translation of adding a three-point shot and then adding just learning more and having a higher basketball IQ, man, honestly, if he were to add a three, it's kind of a bold take, but I would take him as the starting small forward on our team over than anybody we draft this year.
Yeah.
And that's just because Hami has proven that he can step up, and he actually gels well and works well with our current starting rotation.
Yep.
He's one of those guys that, yeah, you don't need to have him have a three-point shot to be successful, because we're talking, like multiple of these fans are talking and saying, oh, we need a defensive player with our next pick. We tried that with your favorite guy, Stanley Johnson.
Yeah, I knew. I was hoping he'd say
that failed. That really did fail.
Yeah, it did. Big time.
And so my opinion is, yeah, it's nice to have defensive guys, but you still need production on offense. If you can get a guy who's a 3-and-D type of player, I'm all for it. But if it's a guy who just specializes in defense, then it's like, where's the offense production? Because he's going to be the worst one out of the bunch. And then if you get a guy who's just offense, it still doesn't work. You need a guy who can do both.
Yeah.
And if Hami could just add a three-point shot to it, man, he can do both easily. Yeah. I mean, he can already do both pretty much already with just having a jumper, and that's it. But if he adds a three-point shot, man, he's lethal.
Oh, yeah, he's dangerous. I mean, he's up there with I mean, he wouldn't be as productive as guys like this, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dwayne Wade, Donovan Mitchell, he's that same build. He's just as athletic as those guys. And then if he can add that to his offensive ability, man, he would be so dangerous with that speed. We talked about the statistics. We talked about if Hami's going to be with the Pistons long term. He was a guy that we talked about in a lot of recaps this last season. He was always seeming to positively impact with the Pistons this year. He went from a guy last season, 2 seasons ago rather, of he's probably going to get included in a trade, to this season, really a key part of the Pistons team. What grade are you going to give him?
So I can't give you an A, because you did struggle at times. You did miss quite a few games there at the end, but that was due to injury, and it's not your fault, because I'm sure if you got the go ahead, I'm sure you would have won and out there and balled out. Yeah. So I'm gonna give you a B+, and that's because, man, you blew me away, because he only averaged 17 minutes a game. That's not a lot, but he was still one of the most productive players on our team this year. Yeah. And that is something you can really applaud for. You can shoot from the field, man. There's nothing that you really did wrong, because you had 53 steals even. Yeah. That's insane, dude. Like, just, you pretty much grew up right in front of our eyes. Because the first 2 seasons, we didn't see that out of you. We were like, he's probably going to get moved. Hopefully we see something. And then this year, we finally saw something, like we saw something out of Killian this year. Yeah. We finally saw who you are and who you can still become. And dude, you're still really young, so I really hope we bring you back, and that's why I gotta give you a B+.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm gonna give him a B. I totally agree with you. I like the way you worded it and grew up. I really do believe this last offseason he grew up and was ready to come and play, and he proved it. If he would have stayed a little bit more healthier, I would have maybe given him an A. You know, if he played the whole season and maybe gave us a little more buckets, shot a little bit better from the three-point line, he's not far off from an A. I'm going to roll with the B. I really hope the Pistons re-sign him. He's right now probably my top 5 favorite Piston players on the team. I love Hamidou Diallo. I would love to meet Hamidou Diallo. Yeah. He just seems like such a fun guy.
Oh, for sure.
And Hamidou, if you're watching this, come on the pod.
Yeah.
It seems like every episode we're inviting a Piston player on the pod. Just come and talk with us. We'd love to ask you questions. But Hamidou, I appreciate your effort this season. It really seemed like you were locked in. It looked like he wanted to play better, which we have a lot of young guys on our team. Sometimes it looks like they're not always the most locked in. Hamidou Diallo seemed very engaged and locked in this season, and I applaud him for that. That ends episode number 29.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick shout out to Rodney McGruder, who we really didn't go over. I'm giving you...
Did I skip him on accident?
Yes, you did, actually.
Oh, I was supposed to...
But I'm just going to give him his final grade. Yeah. We don't need to talk about it.
Yep. I have a grade too.
But I'm going to give him an A.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, he normally doesn't play for us, and we finally get to see him play.
Yeah.
And he dominates.
Also, longest tenured player for the Pistons.
Yeah.
He's been on our team since 2019.
He rides the bench, and then the final time he actually got an opportunity, he balls out. And it's like, oh my goodness, Rodney McGruder. Like, every single time he hit a shot, I was standing up and cheering.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the man showed up every night. When he got an opportunity to suit up and play, like you said, he balled out. The hard work behind the scenes paid off. I really think he's a great guy to have around our guys. He's kind of low key, but also can joke around a little bit. He's also got that feistiness to him that he showed against the Golden State Warriors. I'm giving him a B-. I'm very happy with his play. It's better than what I expected. As the longest tenured Detroit Piston player, respect for putting up with us for so long, for a couple of years now. We appreciate you, Rodney McGruder. I'm sorry I skipped over you. I really did have you in my notes. I just, for some reason, going through all the names, I forgot. That will do it for episode number 29. We just broke down and evaluated the Detroit Pistons bench players from last season, and we talked about guys like Cory Joseph, Boeheim, Rhoden, Isaiah Livers, Alec Burks, Hamidou Diallo, and last but not least, Rodney McGruder. That will do it for today's episode. Before you guys leave, I want to shout out Grind Clothing Co. They just had a new drop recently, so make sure to go follow Grind on Instagram. The link to their Instagram is in our YouTube bio. And then also, we are so close to 100 subscribers, guys. Go follow and make sure to like, because we are, as of right now, 11 subscribers away from 100. We would be so happy to finally hit 100 subscribers. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.